So, for the context of this story, this was about 10 years ago, so I don't remember it completely. Forgive me if I kind of use filler content here and there, or if the details seem a bit skewed. I was about 13 the first time my parents took me and my little brother to Disneyland for the first time, and it literally was the happiest place on earth. Me and my brother, who was only 10 at the time, adored the rides, the fireworks, the food, just the magic in general. It was my favorite family vacation we had ever taken. However, I seemed to get a lot of negative attention. I was tall for my age and already well developed, so I would get stares from older men. I didn't realize it at the time, but I overheard my dad, who has always been really protective of me, mention something to my mom about a father with his own 2 children staring at my ass in the line of a ride. This barely concerned me though, considering where we were at. On the 3rd day of our vacation, my parents were so worn out they didn't want to go back to the park anymore. I begged and pleaded with them to allow me and my brother to head off on our own, and finally, my mother talked my father into allowing us to go and explore Disneyland by ourselves. Taking my brother firmly by the hand, we walked to the park entrance and experienced a newfound sense of glorious freedom as we walked through the gate by ourselves for the first time. It was almost like seeing it all over again in a new light. Like I said, I was completely oblivious to most things since I had grown up in a small town in relative safety. I was a nerd and nobody ever paid attention to me in my middle school, so I didn't expect them to pay attention to me anywhere else. I remember getting in line for the Pirates of the Caribbean, and I felt someone get in line behind me and my brother and was standing very, very close. Close enough to almost be touching my brother. Since my brother has autism and I didn't want him freaking out because someone was so close, I decided to play the sacrificial lamb and stepped between him and my brother. However, this just made him step even closer, practically pressing up against my body. I felt uncomfortable, but I chose to ignore him as we got closer to the front of the ride. Stepping into the boat, I stuck my brother on the side and slunk into the middle seat. From behind me, I could hear a commotion and someone slid in next to me, the creepy guy who kept pressing up against me. It didn't take him long to continue getting in my personal space, his hand practically touching my upper thigh. I was a shy 13-year-old and he was a grown-ass man. How the hell was I gonna try to keep him off me? He would have crushed me like a bug, so I tried to huddle next to my brother and enjoy the ride. As it went on, the guy's hand went from a relaxed stance to a firm grip, his thumb digging into my skin. I wanted to cry and vomit all at the same time as my oblivious brother watched the animatronic pirates. As the ride was getting to a standstill, the guy finally turns to me and gives me a smile. At least I think it was a smile. It was super dark in the ride, it could have been a snarl for all I knew. He mentioned something about seeing me and my brother around the park, that we looked like we were lost and that he could give us a behind-the-scenes tour of the park since he was an off-duty park employee. He said he worked for Tower of Terror over in California Adventure. I politely declined and the guy finally let go of my thigh but kept his leg securely glued to my own. I couldn't get out of that damn boat fast enough. Heart in my throat and my brother in tow, we got out of the ride and burst onto the busy street. I didn't know what to do except get away from that creep, but he tailed me and my brother for another 10 minutes. Finally, I realized what my 13-year-old terrified self had to do. I marched up to the closest park employee, a young short woman with blonde hair, and started telling her about the events of the last half hour. I tried to point out the man, but apparently as soon as he saw we were going to talk to staff, he hightailed it out of there. She reassured me they would do everything in their power to try and find the guy, but she couldn't make any promises. We were asked to go to security and not to walk back to our hotel alone, so I could give a description of the man, which I was unfortunately unable to do because of the dimness of the ride. They called our parents, who were visibly shaken, but glad that we were okay. The rest of our vacation went off without a hitch, but my brother and I were kept by our parents' sides the entire time. Even when we went back when I was 16 and my mother kept me glued to her hip the entire time. It was only when we went back when I was 19 that she allowed me and my brother to wander off again. By this point, me being my loudmouth, sweary self you now see before you. I guess these occurrences aren't uncommon in the park, unfortunately, and for the sake of those who are victims of something like this, I pray that you speak up, scream, fight, do whatever you can, get away from people like that man. And to the man on the Pirates ride, let's never fucking meet again, you pedophile. I've never posted on here before. Hopefully everything is correct and I'm not breaking any rules. I'm not terribly good with telling stories about things that happen in my day-to-day life. I tend to keep to myself. This particular story has affected how I live my life currently, however, as I was too scared to bring it up when I was younger. I live in a medium-sized southern town, about 45,000 people. I know all of my neighbors and the people who go to the Kingdom Hall of the Jehovah's Witness 3 houses down. I happen to live on the last street within city limits, and it's a pretty elderly and quiet area. The layout of the street is unique, as well as making a T shape toward the end of the main road. The left side of the T road has the JW's church, and the right side leads to the road leading to town. At the end of this road is a small gravel driveway that leads to underbrush and a couple of abandoned houses. My youngest sister, 7, and I, 12, had decided to take a walk one afternoon through the neighborhood. As we make our way to the stop sign at the end of the T-shaped road, an older woman well into her 60s and possibly early 70s rolls out of the dirt driveway in front of us. I had an odd feeling about this woman. She certainly didn't live in the neighborhood. My brotherly instincts kick in and I force my youngest sister, despite her protest, to turn around and start marching back home with me following close behind. The old woman slowly rides behind before finally driving parallel next to us. She rolls down her window and asks directions to some local store or whatnot, I really can't remember where, and I tell her basic directions. She then proceeds to insist on my sister and I hopping in her truck so she can take us home. I politely tell her, "No, we're on a walk." She doesn't take no for an answer and proceeds to tell us she is a friend of my grandmother's, to which my sister abruptly blurts out, "You know Mama Phyllis?" She says, "Of course I know her. Yes, Phyllis, we're good friends. Get in the truck." I politely decline again and insist that we really would like to continue our walk. I force my sister to walk lock-in step at a pace I know she can barely handle. The old woman begins to yell out her window at us to get in the damn truck, adding threats that if we don't, she'll be sure to tell our grandmother how we disobeyed an adult and that we were awful children. As we finally get to the driveway, both my sister and I run as quickly as we can down the driveway and to the front porch, bursting back into the house. My grandmother asks how our walk was. We lie, say we had a race, and that was about it, and we never talked about it again. I actually don't believe my sister remembers the incident, in all honesty. I've never seen that woman or that truck in my neighborhood since that incident, and believe for a fact that my sister and I wouldn't be living if we had jumped into her truck. Anyway, I'm really bad at telling life stories, and hopefully this is comprehensible. But even if it isn't, it's good to get that incident off my chest. I'm a terrible writer, so please bear with me. I'm just here to see what the people of Reddit think of this situation. I was pretty hesitant to post it in the first place. Little boring backstory. My mother had me at the young age of 19 and was very proactive to ensure that she gave me the best bringing up possible. So she worked her ass off, had her own apartment, her own car, paid bills in time, and catered to every need I had as an infant until I had to fly the coop. She's pretty amazing, and so is my family. Both my father and my mother's side of the family were there whenever my mom needed someone to watch me and when she had to go to work, but sometimes not all schedules aligned and she had to resort to hiring babysitters. I was told that she posted some flyers in popular places and cafes to get a larger audience in hopes of someone contacting her, and which, to her surprise, she received some feedback and hired a wonderful girl named Rachel. Sounds pretty casual and anticlimactic to some, including myself. I always ask how I was as a child, some funny stories, memorable moments, etc. I don't know why, I'm just that type of person who loves detail and will ask questions to grasp emotions and depth of any story, especially those I'm interested in. But to my surprise, I found out that the process of finding a babysitter was much more difficult and unsettling, to say the least. I didn't find this out until I was in high school 3 years ago when I was in my junior year after a volleyball game I was in. My mother and I were laughing about something when we were leaving the school doors and out to her car to head home for the night when a lady stopped us. Now, I've seen this lady around my school, usually after hours, to clean and take out the trash. She was a janitor, and I never really thought about her deeply before until she stopped us that night. It was evident that she had special needs, and I don't mean that in any bad or denigrating way. It was clear that she was excited to see me, and it was also clear that my mother was uneasy when she put her arm around my waist. "I know you. I used to babysit you when you were younger," she'd say. "Just a wee baby. I used to see you a couple times a month, and we were practically best friends." She even mentioned my name. To my knowledge, I had no idea who this woman was, at least personally. Immediately confused, and before I could say another word, my mom pushed me out the door and hastily walked to her car. She didn't say a word the whole ride home, and I didn't ask any questions. A few days passed, and I brought the situation up to my mom randomly. I could tell she was disturbed at the thought of it, but she ended up sitting me down and telling me the story of when she was looking to hire someone to babysit me. The lady I had met at school that night had contacted Mom regarding her flyer. I guess they went to the same high school, which happens to be the school I went to, and since we live in a very small and rural town, she knew where my mother had lived. When my mom respectfully declined, the lady got obsessive with her and I. She would call my mom every day, visit her at work, and even wait outside of her house to try and change her mind on hiring her. She would even write letters to my mom and stick them in the mailbox. It got to the point then one day, my mom woke up from a nap to her sitting on the floor of the living room and playing with me as I laughed with glee. She stopped her story from there. I assumed that she had either moved, had a restraining order, or called the cops, maybe all three. But it really shook her up, and I think anyone can understand why. We don't know how she got into the house, or how long she knew how to get in, or even how long she'd been entering the house. All I know is that after that night, she stared at me while I had volleyball practice. Ever since I graduated high school, I haven't seen her. So, lady, whoever you are, let's not meet. Hi there, thanks so much for listening. Now that things are starting to pick up around here and I've started to get a larger collection of videos up, I'm going to be starting an upload schedule so that viewers can know when to expect new content on the channel. I'll be adding a new video every Friday and Saturday. The Friday uploads will be done in the mid-afternoon, so they'll be ready for any Friday night spook sessions that anybody has planned, and the Saturday videos will go up in the mid-morning. As always, if you have any stories that you'd like to have featured on this channel, please email them to readingrubyt@gmail.com, which I'll list in the description for you below, so you can copy and paste that. Please be sure to include in your email your name as you'd like to have it featured here and express permission for me to publish it on this channel. If you're interested in Let's Plays or live streams, go ahead and check out VexTech Labs. I'll add some links down in the description for that as well. My friends and I, all playing some video games together, and I like to think it's pretty amusing. So check us out. Thanks again for watching. Leave a like and a comment. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay safe out there.